Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon SoulSilver. Wait up, what's the hurry? You have some good Pokemon there. It must be from the training you gave them around Violet City. The training at the gym must have been especially helpful. As a souvenir Violet City, take this! It increases the power of grass-type moves. Thanks for the seed. Miracle Seed increases grass-type move power by 20% here in Gen 4 for any Pokemon that equips it. With that, since I don't have any grass types, not really going to be using that much. Speaking of grass types, though, this is Hoppip. Grass flying type, which is not a very good type in my eyes combo. Because while it's immune to ground, it's weak to flying, poison, rock, fire, and ice. A lot of those are very common types. Hoppip's line is kind of weak in my eyes. As it evolves, it does get a really good speed stat and okay special defense along the way. But the rest of its stats just aren't worth that. Plus, from memory, I don't recall it getting a really good moveset. I think its moves early on are mostly status effect focused. I think it can learn acrobatics in some generation, but that's only after that move got introduced. For here in Gen 4, not really worth your time unless you're just trying to complete it. It's cute though, I'll give it that. Either way, yeah, hi everyone, and welcome back to Let's Play Pokemon SoulSilver. In the last part, we cleared out the gym and another dungeon over in Violet City. And now it's time for us to fly straight south towards Azalea Town. Now, I do want to apologize for the last part being rather abrupt. With this particular LP, as well as another one I'm working on with my buddy Kenny, that might be up by the time this gets uploaded. I don't know, honestly. We'll see when we get to that. Even if I have notes for longer RPGs now, I try to do longer recording sessions nowadays. And that leads to me cutting those sessions down in, at times, somewhat uneven ways, because I like to have a relative similar part length between them all. I'm trying to shoot for around 30 minutes per part in this LP. And with how Pokemon is paced, that means we're going to have some parts that just kind of end at weird places more than likely. Now, Route 32, we've already encountered most of the Pokemon we can see around here for a while. Once we're able to do stuff with water, there's a few more Pokemon you can find around here from memory. That's a Repel, by the way. That keeps lower-level Pokemon from showing up in random battles for a little bit. I don't use those much because I like to carry on the EXP from every individual random battle. And if we're showing this optional trainer, that means it's time for us to fight another new Pokemon. This is Nidoran Female. Pure poison type, so it's weak to Psychic and Ground. Stat-wise, it's pretty equal on all of its stats, which is weird for a Babymon. And it keeps that going through to its final phase, even though there is a bit more of a bias, I believe, towards the physical stats and HP in the case of Nidoran Female's final evolution. It can be good and it has an okay learn set. The big thing is, it does gain a subtype that adds a lot of weaknesses to it, potentially, in its final phase. I've used one a couple times, and I do appreciate the Pokemon overall, but it might not be for everyone. Interestingly, though, it's got two abilities. One's Poison Point, which is basically static but for poison. If you get hit with a physical attack, you can poison the opponent. But it also has Rivalry, as does its partner we'll be talking about in a moment, Nidoran Male. Rivalry is interesting in that whenever a Pokemon who has that ability does an attack, that power is raised by 25% if the user and the target are of the same gender, and it reduces by 25% if they're opposite. So if you know, like, every single Pokemon layout throughout the game, you might be able to use that to your advantage, or at least if you know the person you're going up against's team. Speaking of which, here's Nidoran Male. Unlike Nidoran Female, this thing is a lot more specialized to start. Nidoran Male is much more focused on physical attack and speed to start. But oddly, as it evolves, it loses that specialization and just ends up, I think, being a worse Nidoran Female line. I like the purple, but I ultimately prefer the Nidoran Female line overall. Same abilities otherwise, though. You can find them somewhere around here. But yeah, unique amongst Pokemon, the Nidoran line actively marks the gender in the name because the original Gen 1 didn't have genders for every Pokemon. That was added in the original Generation 2. Just one of those occurrences that's a little odd compared to everything else. That said, that's Bullet Seed. Bullet Seed is a grass-type move that can hit between 2 to 5 times on an opponent, but each hit has really weak power. The best thing about things like that is there are Pokemon who can take really good advantage moves like that by using their ability that makes those type of moves always hit the max amount of times, or at least closer to it. But they're usually so weak on power, at least the early versions of them in the game, that they're not worth going for. With that said, Youngster Gordon here has a new Pokemon for us, the Lord of Happiness. This is Wooper. Water ground type, meaning it's only weak to grass type, even if it is a 4 times weakness. Immune to electricity. It's adorable, but its uses, I'm not going to say are limited, but it can be definitely a hard Pokemon to use in my experience. Because its evolutionary line definitely specializes in HP and physical stats, while its special stats and speed are very low. But it has a decent moveset, especially learning Earthquake later down the line. So if you put some good time in it, it can be very good. It just might take some taking used to, essentially. Because that does briefly brush onto something I haven't talked about yet, and that's EVs and IVs. Pokemon essentially aren't always built the same. Some have stats built a specific direction individually. And you get essentially decimal points of stats for fighting. I think wild Pokemon in particular, that when you level up eventually will balance up to that, gaining an extra point every level, something along those lines. It's complicated. And unless you're specifically building something for multiplayer or a very specific area down the line, not worth paying attention to. With that said, time for our next new Pokemon immediately. This is Goldeen, pure water type, meaning it is weak to grass and electric. This is a Pokemon that got better in Gen 4 with the physical special split because it's very physically minded, its physical attack and defense are much higher than its special, and its speed's okay for what it is as well, and that only got better as it evolved. And it can learn some okay physical aligning water type moves. So this could be a good water type if you're looking for one. I find there are better examples of water types to get throughout the game, especially considering how many other water moves are still special aligning. But it can be useful. I've used one a couple times here and there. Overall, my priorities personally for water types are ones that have higher special attack because of how many water type attacks still use special attack. In fact, I'd say I basically have a set water type for every generation, and then I have one particular water type that I try to use whenever it's available, if only because it's one of my favorite Pokemon, period. More on that down the line. Thinking about it, if you don't choose Totodile at the start of the game, you're kind of out of luck for a water type for a little bit. Because I think the next one you can catch that's not like a stone item evolution is like 3 or 4 towns from now, maybe? Somewhere around there, at least. That's a little rough, honestly. It's a little rough. Pokemon has some cases like that where some games, because of either the layout of Pokemon you can catch, or the layout of the areas itself and which order you need to go through them, finding certain types can be a little tough. Very famously, Sinnoh in particular, fire types are very scarce to come by. Unfortunately, if you don't choose the fire starter at the start of that game. Well, weird too now that I think about it, because they gave us the Miracle Seed at the start of this route, but the other 2 starter type boosting items, you can't get one of them until you get the ability to go on water down the road. And the other one you can get soon-ish, but either you need a lot of money or you need to remember to go backwards, which I seldom do. Poor water types. They lose out on that for quite a while. Well, we got 2 more fishermen over here, and I believe they both have new Pokemon for us to go up against. Oh, yes, they do. This one's got Poliwag. Poliwag itself, water type, so weak against grass and electric. For just a first form Pokemon, this thing's got some really good speed, and it's 2 potential final evolutions. One's a really good physical attacker, the other's a really good special attacker. The weird thing is, though, when it goes into its final evolution phase, I believe it loses some of that base speed. I kind of wish it would grow a little bit in it, but, oh well. It was always funny looking at Poliwag, though. Because I look back at a lot of the old Gen 1 era media, like a lot of the manga that were coming up during that time before Gen 2 came out, and how they tried to push different Pokemon to be potential mascots. I see Poliwag, and I just remember early Pokemon Special, how they really tried to push Poliwhirl as being a potential mascot as well. Same with Clefairy in a different manga. And Eevee's always sort of been the other mascot anyway. Kind of wish they did that more often. I guess they sort of have a little bit here and there with some of these side media, like the little animated shorts to be like, here's this Pokemon just being adorable, like that one they released for Gen 8 with the Slugma. Also, speed up theme for this part is the Hiroshima battle theme from Yakuza 6. I love this song. Yakuza 6's soundtrack kicks ass. It's not as good as Yakuza Kiwami or Yakuza 0's soundtrack, but it's still really good. And oh boy, it's time for the legendary type of trainer themselves. 4 Pokemon, all 4 of them Magikarp. Magikarp, oh sweet, sweet Magikarp. Pure water type, so weak to grass and psychic. High speed for what it is, and an okay defense stat for what it is, but the rest of its stats are trash, very purposely so, because Magikarp is meant to be pathetic. It only knows 2 moves. It starts off with Splash, which literally does nothing. And I think at level 15 it learns Flail, which I believe does more damage the more HP you've lost. If you eventually get this thing up to level 20 by having to turtle it hardcore, though, you get rewarded with a very good physical attacker with some really good speed, and I think at least 1 good defense stat from memory. So if you want a good water type, I would recommend this line far over the Goldeen line or the Poliwag line, honestly. The thing is, you just have to put a little more effort in to do that compared to the others, at least a different type of effort. I've had plenty of playthroughs where I use this thing's evolution when we see that later down the road. With that said, basically every generation likes to have the trainer that has 4 plus of these, usually upwards of 6. So we're just gonna speed past the rest of these. It's a funny joke the one time, but I feel the only reason they kept repeating it is they thought it was always funny. And no, after about the 5th Magikarp in one game, I tend to feel sad fighting these, because I'm just like, I feel like I'm beating up something that can't fight back. I'm like, man, that's sad. With that said, I believe that's by and large every trainer on this route, and we're about to go up on something interesting, a Pokemon Center in the middle of a route. How would you like to have this tasty, nutritious Slowpoke tail? For you, right now, just 1 million Poke. You want this? No, I don't even think you can get that much money. You don't want it? Then scram, shoo. Something the series does at least once or twice per game on average from memories. They'll place a Pokemon Center usually if you're at the end of a longer route before a dungeon, just so you can get a minor refill. Mount Moon comes to mind in Gen 1. I think they do this at least once or twice in Gen 3. As someone who likes to backtrack to Pokemon Centers rather than using healing items, I appreciate it a lot. With that said, we're now at the point where I'm going to start cutting out my visits to Pokemon Centers besides entering them, because they're not going to have a lot of note in them unless I show it otherwise. With that said, welcome to Union Cave, our next dungeon. Pokemon-wise, there's a lot you've seen before in here. Geodudes, Onyxes, Rattatas. Heart Gold notably can catch Sandshrews here, which we'll see them later down the road if memory serves. And if you're playing that version, I do recommend catching that Pokemon a lot because I like that line a lot. But we have other Pokemon to talk about at the moment, most notably what this Fire Breather, I think is the name of this particular Pokemon trainer class is. This one's going to be using a Vulpix, pure fire type, so it is weak to ground, rock, and water. High special defense from memory and speed. Its special attack is definitely its higher attack stat too, which specializes it because, you know, fire type in Gen 1. And it only gets better at those stats as it evolves. I can recommend its evolution a lot. The problem is, in Johto at least, getting evolution stones that are needed can be a bit of a problem in most cases. I think they give you at least 1 each of the main ones for free in the game just by exploring around and grabbing all the field items. But if you want multiples, you gotta do some real annoying stuff. I'll talk about that more in particular down the line. Also, I shouldn't forget about mentioning Vulpix's ability. Vulpix's ability is Flash Fire, which means they're immune to fire-type attacks, and when they get hit by one, their own fire-type attacks get boosted in power by 50%. And here we get Rock Tomb. This is a Rock-type move that's relatively weak, but can lower an opponent's speed by, I think, 1 stage? Not something I tend to use. Rock-type moves in general, there's only like 1 I tend to use a lot, and it's the big one for players of this gen back when. At least when it comes to inducing nightmares. Union Cave is a surprisingly large area, but you can't access a lot of it until you get the ability to traverse water. So we're going to be coming back here way down the line to finish this place off in any kind of depth. And thankfully, most Pokemon trainers here are optional. I'd say this is the first part of the game where they're usually like, you can avoid most trainers as long as you're good about timing. I should note though, whenever a Pokemon trainer does look around in multiple directions, riding the eventual vehicle down the line or running does make them look in your direction faster, if not outright force it. So you want to make sure if you're trying to dodge Pokemon trainers that you're taking it slow. I don't know why you'd want to do that, because you're missing out on precious experience points, but I guess if you're in a hurry. Not that you should be in a hurry in a Pokemon game, you always have the save prompt right there, so, Unless you're doing, like, one of those specialty playthroughs, like, it's not just like a speed run where, like, I'm playing on the Game Boy player, my gold and silver cartridge's save batteries are dead, so I need to beat the game in one sitting kind of stuff. I don't know why I did that with, like, a comedy movie trailer voice, but, oh well. Oh, by the way, a new Pokemon, that was Coughing. Pure poison type, so it's weak to ground and psychic. I believe it can have levitate, so it can at least neutralize that ground weakness as well. The Coughing line really tanky for special defense. Even if its other stats are a little low, honestly, if you're looking for a good tank for specifically special attacks, I could recommend the Coughing line. Speaking of special stats, this is Slowpoke, water psychic type, weak to, I think that's bug, ghost, grass, electric, and dark from memory. Slowpoke's name is very apt. It is an extraordinarily slow Pokemon, but it has a really impressive HP stat for just a base level Pokemon. And it only gets better as it evolves. If anything, the big problem is figuring out which one you want to use for its evolutions, because this is a case of a branching evolution where you can send it down one road or another depending entirely on what you're looking for. I tend to go for the original evolution, which has not only high HP, but also high defense. But that's just me. Also, I'm not picking up every single time we get a Pokegear call. I do pick up quite a few of them, though. Just here and there to see what we're being called about. Again, I'd say on average, barring the phone numbers you get just along the way by playing, like the ones that are forced to you no matter what, I'd say maybe only a third of the phone numbers are actually useful in the game. Because a lot of them do just call to be like, hey, how are you? Bye. Some will be like, hey, I have this important item for you, or hey, you want a rematch? And even then, the rematches, I don't like that they made the rematches behind the Pokegear. I stated that before. I think it just means a lot of waiting for a rematch that's not going to be ultimately worth the experience yield. The Versus Seeker and other games, and even how later games do rematches, if there are any, are much better for that. And even then, some later games have better ways of gaining experience anyway. But we'll talk more about that as we go. It's time for, once again, another new Pokemon. We just have to get through this guy's Geodude first to get to it. Are you sick of Geodudes yet, by the way? Because you probably will be by the end of this game. You find these everywhere, it feels like. And that slightly goes into a problem I have with this generation that I'll talk about in a few minutes. For now, the new Pokemon we're about to fight is a Machop. Fighting type, so it's weak to Flying, Psychic, and if it was here in this generation, Fairy type. The Machop line is very HP tanky and high attack. In fact, overall, even if you need to trade to get to its final evolution, it's very worth having one of these around if you're looking for someone who can use physical attacks really well. And even has some good defense stats for what it is overall compared to its HP. The big problem is, again, if you're someone playing solo or doesn't have the ability to trade and get the Pokemon back, getting to that final evolution will require some hacking, more than likely in most cases. Either that or just some real cooperative people. I've used one a couple of times here and there. I have much preferred physical attack users, not only in this game, but in other games, period. But since Dove reached a certain level in that fight, it's time for her to evolve into her second stage. I wasn't paying attention during that battle, barring Machop, so what level is this again? I think it's level 15. Mareep evolves into Flaffy. Still just a plain electric type, still weak to ground, just basically Mareep, but better, higher stats in general. Worth having around as much as Mareep is. Its next evolution is where things get kind of ridiculous, honestly. At least in terms of its special attack stat. Also, this here is Route 33. It's only a single screen, and the Pokemon you can find here, by and large, identical to what they were on Route 32 for now. Who are you? You don't know us. We are Team Rocket. What? We broke up a while ago. Give me a break. We have not broken up. Actually, we did once, but we have come back to pursue Giovanni's ambition. Enough talking. Shut up and just beat it. Well, guess they're back. Great. Nothing's going on. It's unsafe to go in there, so I'm sending guard to make sure people don't wander in. Am I not a good Samaritan? Sure, buddy. Sure. The Slowpoke have disappeared from town. I heard their tails are being sold somewhere. Well, that explains why they're so ridiculously expensive. We have this tough guy called Kurt in this town. He should be able to take care of this. Did you come to get Kurt to make some Pokeballs? A lot of people do just that. Well, they're certainly talking up this Kurt guy. Might as well go see what's up with him after we use the Pokemon Center. And, you know, let's check out the gym while we're here as well. Might as well. I mean, it's right here. It's not a very big town. You know about Slowpoke Tail? I hear it's tasty. Ain't you glad I told you that? Okay, we can't get in there yet then. So I guess we'll head into Kurt's house, because logically it's the only place left in town we haven't seen anything about. But before we do that, let's grab this white apricorn. If you're playing along, by the way, and you're wondering when the hell can we use these apricorns we've been gathering for not too many videos now, but you've definitely gotten a bit of a stock up at this point, probably. Don't worry, you're coming up on when you can finally use them. Hello there. The Slowpoke are gone. Were they taken away by bad people? Probably. Who are you? Kyle, eh? You want me to make some balls? Sorry, but that'll have to wait. Do you know Team Rocket? Don't worry, I'll tell you anyhow. Team Rocket's an evil gang that uses Pokemon for their dirty work. They're supposed to have disbanded 3 years ago. Anyway, they're at the well, cutting off Slowpoke tails for sale. So I'm going to go give them a lesson in pain. Hang on, Slowpoke, old Kurt's on his way. Well, I guess we can go access that well now, then. Yeah, Team Rocket Grunt's gone. I guess Kurt killed the man and hid the body in the forest. Well, it's probably a small enough town. They'll defend him for that, probably. Welcome to Slowpoke Well, a little bit of a dungeon. Hey there, Kyle. The guard up top took off when I shouted at him. But then I took a tumble down the well. I slammed down hard on my back, so I can't move. Rats, if I were fit, my Pokemon would have punished him. Can't be helped. Kyle, show them how gutsy you are in my place. Sure thing, Kurt. Slowpoke Well's a dungeon we also cannot explore in full until we get a couple of different moves down the line, but now it's time for our first Team Rocket match. I was standing guard up top when some old coot yelled at me. He's telling me so much I fell down here. I'm gonna vent my anger and take it out on you. Technically not a boss fight, but I feel it's important to highlight the first appearance of this Team Rocket theme. This battle theme is wonderful. With that said, oh my god, do you get tired of it by the end of it. Team Rocket in this particular game uses more or less the same Pokemon they did back in Gen 1. A lot of poison types, a lot of normal types, Rattata is their evolution, Zubat line, Coughing line, a couple others here and there. It's a little weird that they reused the same Pokemon and the same team, but I guess Pokemon wasn't sure what it wanted to be by Gen 2. In fact, apparently Gen 2 was originally going to be the last game of the series originally, and man, given the media giant it is now, bet they're probably laughing thinking back at that. Gen 2's biggest problem to me in a lot of ways is it feels more like an expansion of Gen 1 in like the wrong way. To the point of, even if I look at the Pokemon we've run into thus far, how many Gen 2 Pokemon are in there? 1, 2, technically 3, 4, 5, 6 with Flaffy. 6. 6 Gen 2 Pokemon. No, wait, 7 Hoppip. Forgot about that. 8 Wooper. Either way, 10 or less. And that's already 1/10 of the Pokemon they added for the original Gen 2, and for at least the first half of Heart Gold, Soul Silver, they're very faithful about the Pokemon that show up. It feels like you really have to go out of the way to find the new stuff in Johto, and it feels very lackluster because of that. I feel what they do with Gen 3 Beyond is the much better decision for pacing of Pokemon placements, where they're like, okay, if you want to find the old stuff, there's some here and there, but the vast majority of Pokemon you run into during the main game are entirely new. Yes, that led to you needing more Pokemon games to get the full Pokedex. That's partially why, in the case of like Hoenn, they ended up making Fire Red, Leaf Green, and why Heart Gold, Soul Silver exists to help get the Gen 2 Pokemon here and there. But you can still get, I think, around... Out of the 493 Pokemon that existed by the time of Gen 4, I think you can get around 300 of them with just Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Thanks to certain mechanics towards endgame. Anything else you're lacking, you probably just need Platinum to get, honestly. And it does lead to another problem with Pokemon moving forward in that regard, where starting from Gen 5 on, it's harder to get Pokemon from earlier gens, if only because, yes, that Pokedex is almost entirely new and you run into very few old-timers, but keeping a living Pokedex going just got harder and harder. That's the main reason I stopped doing it. With that, though, after a trip to the Pokemon Center, time for the boss of the Slowpoke Well. What do we have here? I'm often labeled the scariest and cruelest guy in Team Rocket. I strongly urge you not to interfere with our business. Time for our first Team Rocket admin fight. This is Proton. Starting off, he's going to throw out a Zubat with Inner Focus as his ability, Leech Life, and Supersonic for its attack, so it can confuse you and sap your own HP into itself. With that said, it's a Zubat at level 8. At this point, you're probably more than high enough to take care of that. Inner Focus, by the way, I believe prevents the Pokemon from flinching. The biggest pain that you'll see me go through with some of the boss fights in this game is I make a bit of some bad plays here and there, if only because I'm trying to farm out experience for a particular Pokemon at a certain point. Again, partially because I don't play Pokemon super religiously. I don't have things like every Pokemon's types exactly memorized. Sometimes I forget about abilities. I'm a flawed human player, and does it show? Especially down the road in some really stupid instances. But we got a while before there. Again, we got 57 hours of gameplay for me to edit. And by the end of this particular part, we're only about, I'm actually going to go take a look at the actual recordings right here to get the exact note on this. Before I talk about that, Proton's second Pokemon is a Coughing. Levitate for its ability, Poison Gas, Tackle, Smog, and Smokescreen. Smog is the attack you need to fear there. If only because it can very easily poison you. It doesn't matter where we go, there's always someone who doesn't agree with us. Man, you are taking the wrong lesson from what's going on here, Proton. It's not that we don't agree with you, it's that you're being messed up. Thankfully, a good critical hit to the face will take care of you. For a kid to be this good, I didn't see it coming. Team Rocket was indeed broken up 3 years ago, but we continued our activities underground. A small obstacle like you won't be much of a problem for our mission. I advise you to be very afraid of what's to come. Alright, so we freed the Slowpoke, all 2 of them. Way to go, Kyle. Team Rocket's taken off. My back's better, too. Let's get out of here. Hi, Kyle. You handle yourself like a real hero. As I mentioned before, Team Rocket was disbanded by a boy called Red 3 years ago. Now they've come back, I have a bad feeling about it. In any case, it would please me greatly to make Pokeballs for a trainer like you, Kyle. This is all I have now, but take it. And he gives us a fastball. You have apricorns for me. Fine, I'll turn them into Pokeballs. So Kurt can take each color of apricorn and turn it into a distinct Pokeball. With that said, you can only give him one at a time and you have to wait a day to get it. And honestly, between that and the fact I only think one of these Pokeballs is any kind of useful, I don't like to use Apricorns in Kurt, and I don't like to use Apricorns at the other location either. So Kurt just kind of stays in the background for most of the game for me. In the original Gen 2, these Pokeballs were arguably more useful. I say arguably because Pokemon were more specific back then because of the lower number, but also arguably because half of them were bugged anyway to have a 1x catch rate. Whoops. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 5, we're going to go through the Azalea Gym and talk about what the Pokeballs that Kurt can give you do. See you guys then.